This is Carla. She lives in Mexico and me in Norway. Anyways, we've only met twice and yet she's my best friend, my girlfriend, and my everything. But it wasn't always like this. There was a time when we didn't know if we'd make it, when every misunderstanding felt like a breaking point and the distance between us wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. I met Carla on Tinder of all places, and if you told me then that this girl, this stranger on my screen, would become the person I'd love more than anyone else in the world, I probably wouldn't believe you. But she did, and loving her has been the hardest and most beautiful thing I've ever done. So this is the story of how we went from fighting, doubting, and almost falling apart to building something worth fighting for. Cause love isn't perfect, it's messy, it's painful, and it takes a lot of work. But if you gave it your everything, your heart and your soul, it truly is worth every second. So we met on Tinder. I didn't have high hopes for this app as I've heard so many terrible things, but it led me to Carla. We matched, we started chatting immediately, and before I knew it we were texting every single day. Already just this part made me feel the happiest I'd ever felt. I never really thought love at first sight was a thing, and yet I felt like I was walking on clouds, encapsulated by the tingly feeling of love. But I couldn't call it that yet. We'd only been talking for a few weeks. As the months went by, we kept texting, and I decided I had to see her. I booked a ticket for Guadalajara, Mexico, where we were gonna spend a couple days together. Everything was going amazing. But while we were waiting for the departure date, I started depending on her texts every morning and throughout the day. I didn't really notice it at first, since we talked so much, but I noticed that shifts of energy would heavily impact my mood. Nothing could prepare me for meeting her for the first time in Guadalajara. It was December 2023 and I was nervous, well, terrified. I didn't know how she'd react to me or how I would feel in person.
Watching this video with you and your kids, so hi, Tito, hi, niños.
And as amazing as it was to finally be with her, we didn't really know each other, not beyond the text, so misunderstandings piled up pretty quickly. I felt lost. I started doubting myself, wondering if I was enough for her, and we had weird fights about stuff that could have been easily avoided. But we really didn't know how to communicate together, and when it was time to say goodbye, it broke me. Even through all of the misunderstandings, I knew I loved her. After Guadalajara, everything felt fragile, and communication was impossible. I wanted to understand her, I wanted to feel close to her, but the distance between us wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. I started keeping a diary, hoping to make sense of my feelings, but honestly, I didn't even know what I felt. Every day I'd wake up with my heart racing, checking my phone to see if she texted me, and if her messages were short, or if her tone felt distant, it affected my entire mood. I'd overthink and wonder if I'd done something wrong, and at the same time I was holding back too, mirroring her energy instead of being honest about how I felt, and she mirrored mine. The truth is, I didn't know how to communicate with her. I didn't know how to open up without fear of pushing her away, and without that connection, our relationship started to feel fragile. I loved her deeply, but love without communication is like walking on glass. Every step forward felt uncertain, and every silence felt like it could shatter everything we had. Looking back, I realized we were both trying in our own ways, but neither of us had the tools to truly connect yet. And for a long time, that uncertainty became the hardest thing I've ever had to face. Even still, I knew deep down that this was worth fighting for, even if I didn't know how to fight for it yet. Fast forward to summer 2024. After months of uncertainty and anxiety, she bought a ticket to visit me, 3 weeks in Berlin and Norway. It felt like a leap into the unknown. We weren't officially a couple, but we both knew we loved each other. Still, I couldn't shake the doubts in my head, still wondering how she really felt about me. When I saw her at the airport though, all of that melted away. Hugging her again, kissing her for the first time in over 6 months, it was overwhelming in the best way possible. And that night, for the first time in what felt like forever, I slept soundly. Just having her there brought me peace. At first, I was still a little held back, unintentionally. I didn't fully know how she felt about me, even though deep down, I think I did. I just couldn't believe it. But as the days went by, we started to truly connect in ways we hadn't before. We talked about things we'd never talked about, opened up in ways that made our feelings feel undeniable. Slowly, the wall between us began to crumble. Our misunderstandings and fights became less and less prevalent, but they still existed. After one of these easily preventable fights, she said the words that changed everything. Ich liebe dich, she said. And I'll never forget how it felt. I broke down immediately. Without even realizing it, those were the words I'd been waiting for. The reassurance I never knew I needed. The proof, as weird as it sounds, that she truly loved me. I quickly told her I loved her too, and we just cried together. The rest of that night was spent lying on the couch watching TV. It was the best day of my life. Our time in Norway felt like a dream, meeting my family, my friends, and sharing the life I'd always dreamed of showing her. We still weren't officially a couple, but in our hearts, we knew what we were, and for the first time, love felt easy. Since that trip, we've grown closer. We talk every day, morning and night, and now I'm counting the days until I can see her again. She's coming to spend Christmas with me, 6 whole weeks of her by my side. We've learned to communicate, to listen, to open up, and every challenge we've faced has only made us stronger. She's my best friend, my girlfriend, and the love of my life. This journey has taught me that love isn't easy, but it's worth it, and sometimes the things worth fighting for are the hardest but most beautiful things of all. Carla has shown me what it means to love and to be loved, and now I can't wait to start the next chapter of our story. When I think back to everything we've been through, the fights, the doubts, the sleepless nights, I realize now that it was never about being perfect. It was about choosing each other, even when it was hard, even when it felt like we might break. As cheesy as it sounds, love isn't about the easy moments. It's about seeing someone at their worst and loving them just as fiercely as when they're at their best. And Carla has taught me what it means to love without holding back, to open my heart even when it hurts, and to believe in something greater than myself. Every moment of pain, every tear, every sleepless night led me here, to her, and if I had to live it all over again just to feel what I feel for her now, I'd do it 1,000 times. This is Carla, the girl who made me believe in love, in myself and in us. And as we count down the days until we see each other again, I know one thing for sure. She's my past, my present, and the only future I'll ever want.